Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to be with you. We get some heavy words from Jesus in our gospel today. Whoever loves their mother or their father, their son or their daughter more than they love me is not worthy of me. It leads to a logical question. Should mothers and fathers, sons and daughters be jealous of Jesus? If we're to love God before we love these closest members of our family, more than the closest relationships, the closest connections in our life, are we to be jealous of God? I don't want to bury the lead here. I think ultimately what Jesus is telling us today is not to love anyone or anything less. In fact, he's trying to spur us on to loving other people more by loving God the most. He wants us to learn how to love other people and things more by loving God the most. And so he's trying to grow us up. He's trying to embolden us to recognize the great capacity you and I have to fully love other people. By loving God most, by putting God first. The author C.S. Lewis once wrote that when God looks at us, it's not that he looks at us and he finds our desires, that he finds our loves too large. In fact, when God looks at us, he finds that our desires, our loves are too small. He went on to say that we're like kids who are content playing in a puddle of mud when a trip, a vacation to the sea is on offer to us. That we are too easily pleased. Today, God wants to grow up this desire in us to love most fully. He wants to strengthen us so that we might recognize this great capacity you and I both have to love in a godlike sort of way. I was given a perspective on this earlier this week. When I'm able to go home on Mondays on my day off, I usually lift weights out in my older sister's garage. And it's a rite of passage for my nephews to come out into the garage and lift weights with me. Well, this week it was my 3-year-old nephew Dominic's turn to come out and lift weights with me. If you can imagine lifting weights with a 3-year-old, it wasn't the best workout in the world. But I had all of these weights out on the garage floor, and Damo, he was trying to go up to them and pick them up, to deadlift them up, and they wouldn't budge. And I said to him, Damo, the weight, it's too heavy for you. Too heavy for you. And he looked at me and he said, no, it's not. I'm just too small. And I thought, that's actually an amazing perspective. He's a budding philosopher, a motivational speaker. The weight, it's not too heavy. I'm just too small. And I think this is actually what God sees in us. The command that he gives us today to love him first, to love him most, it's not too heavy for us. It's just that this capacity in us, it needs to grow up. And today in this command, Jesus, I think, gives us 2 ways to grow us up so that we might love fully. And the first way is this, that to love God first, to love God most, means that I love no created thing more than I love the Creator. That I love no created thing more than I love the Creator. How often can we look at our relationships or our things or our careers or this and that and try to get from them what only God can provide for us? You see, you and I, we have an infinite desire to be loved. We have an infinite desire to be affirmed. We have an infinite desire to have meaning in life, and yet so often we settle for second best because we try to find it in a thing of this world. And ultimately, this is unfair to the people in our life and the things in our life because they can never provide for us the fullness of the kind of love that we were made for. And so loving God beyond all things, loving God first, is our realization that I'm not to try and find infinite love in anything less than God, because I'll never find it there. And I'll end up using things, I'll end up using people rather than loving them. There's this old movie called Chariots of Fire. I don't know if you've seen it. It tells the story of British runners of the 1924 Olympics. And there's this conversation between one of the sprinters before his 100-meter dash, a guy by the name of Harold Abrams. And he's talking to some woman about the race that's coming up. And he said, when the gun goes off at the start of the race, I have 10 seconds to justify my existence. I got 10 seconds to justify my existence by excelling in this thing. What's he trying to do there? He's trying to find ultimate meaning, ultimate purpose in some created thing. And that always leaves us frustrated. But to love God above all things, to love God first, allows me to realize that no one thing, no one person in this life will ever fully satisfy me like God will. And so I set my sights on the highest possible thing. But then secondly, loving God above all things, again, it doesn't mean loving anyone or anything less. It means loving them more by loving God most. It's because in the love of God do I learn how to fully love. It's only when I prize the love of God above all things that I learn what it most truly means to love, how to love selflessly, how to love mercifully, how it means to love sacrificially. You know, whenever I'm working with a couple through marriage prep, and we start talking about kids and starting a family, I always ask them that, hey, if you're blessed with children, after that first child is born, what's the most important relationship in your life? And the pious ones will say God, and that's the right answer. But what I don't want them to say is that the most important relationship in my life is my relationship with my kid. That even after you have a child, the most important relationship, the primary relationship, is the relationship with your spouse. And this does not come at the cost of your relationship with your child. It actually is the best thing for it. That when there's health in this prior relationship, it funnels down into health in those other relationships. Well, if it's that way in our human life, how much more is it in our life with God? That when I'm living well my relationship with God, it infiltrates all of my other relationships. Next weekend, I'm headed on a vacation. I'm going to Muscatine because I'm fancy like that for summer vacation. But I'm going to have a few days with my family, and I'll tell you what, my family will know if I'm praying. My family will know if I'm taking seriously my commitment, the promise I made to pray every day and to celebrate Mass. Because if I'm not, I will be more irritable. I'll be more selfish. I'll be less pleasant to be around. You see, prizing our relationship with God, loving God above all things, it is the best possible thing we could do for all of our other relationships. The best thing you can do for your marriage is love God more than you love your marriage. The best thing you can do for your children is love God more than you love your children. The best thing you can do for your career is to love God more than you love your career. This is the invitation. This is the heavy lift that Jesus is giving to us this weekend. You know, brothers and sisters, love is not just a thing. It doesn't just sound like something. Love certainly does not just feel like something. Love looks like something. And so I think the invitation for you and I this weekend is to take stock of what does the love of God in my life look like? What are the ways? What are the ways in which this love I have for the Lord is showing up in my life? And very simply, what's that next step I can take to grow that love in me? Damo is not going to lift the weights unless he starts with a smaller weight. And you and I are not going to love God up to our full capacity unless we just start small. What's that next best thing we can do to love God above all things? I'll end with this. I think our lives and our eternal fate ultimately come down to our answer to one question. That one day I will see God face to face, and he will ask me this question: Andrew, do you love me more than anyone or anything else? Do you love me more than anyone or anything else? And the life we have right now is the training ground. It is the preparation to give a full-throated yes to that question. But that yes, it does not come at the cost of any of those other loves in this life. In fact, it's that yes to God that will allow us to fully love everyone else and everything else in our life to our fullest potential. And so today, what's that next step? What's that next small lift you can take to love God above all things?